Who first suggested to me that I should be teaching with websites, that I should create myself with Dreamweaver? In the fall of 1999, Jeremy suggested that to me. He was a spry, mostly redheaded student in my T.S. Eliot class that I taught that fall. I had never created a website. Why? Because it was 1999. I don't even think people were using WordPress yet, which I became an expert in later. So it was Dreamweaver from Macromedia, later swallowed up by Adobe. We had to use Dreamweaver to create websites, and it was an onerous process. It was like Dreamweaver 3. It felt very much like programming Excel spreadsheets. Images were discouraged, for example. But Jeremy, he was a tech guru. He was a tech guru long before I became a sort of a tech guru myself. Even though he was one of my youthful undergraduates, and he said, "Dr. Andy, I hear you're a tech guy. Why aren't you creating websites with Dreamweaver?" So I created my first website that very fall on our T.S. Eliot class. I loved that class. We talked that quarter about Y2K and whether the century would go out with a bang or a whimper, to quote T.S. Eliot. Jeremy, I think soon after, got a job with Electronic Arts. I may be misremembering. I may be conflating a decade or two. I'm full on walking through a sprinkler. But he got a job with Electronic Arts, and now he's the head of the mobile division. He told me on LinkedIn about 5 years ago that he and his family had just moved to Texas. Electronic Arts in Texas. Sure, why not? But Jeremy taught me some important lessons. One is that we were entering a new era whereby through experimentation, we can become our own content creators, digital creators. So I appreciated having my eyes opened to that. Two, he was much more on the cutting edge of technology than I was. And so I remember meeting him for a cup of tea at Delta of Venus a year or two after he was my student. And my just taking mental notes on all the different things that he was doing at work. It was fascinating. And then three, he made a point of keeping in touch with me, mostly through LinkedIn. I just checked before starting this video. He seems not to be a Facebook user. I think we also exchanged emails, if you remember the email technology. He and I also got to talk about T.S. Eliot in office hours. To this day, one of my favorite subjects. This was also just before I launched my radio show, Dr. Andy's Poetry and Technology Hour. And I likely had my conversations with Jeremy in mind when I launched that show a year later at the end of the year 2000. So thank you, Jeremy, for inviting me to link these two concepts. They've been fruitful for me over the last 26 years. Thank you for encouraging me to be a content creator long before, well, somewhat before my radio show, long before, let's say, my Facebook account or my blog, if you can count it that, on Substack. I guess Substack is its own domain right now. Do we call them blogs? Pardon me as I walk through a jungle. And thank you, Jeremy, for keeping in touch. I wrote him today to say that he made electronic arts video games sound so enticing that I knew way back in 1999 that I had better not go there. I'd have to check my mental records, but I don't think I've ever played an electronic arts video game. But hey, as I wrote to Jeremy, I'm retiring on July 1st, 2027. Maybe that should be the time to start. I won't be taking up smoking or drinking, but I could give in to some future addiction, couldn't I? Maybe Jeremy could guide me in that. The first hit is free, he'll say. I've been waving to strangers on the sidewalk. Now I'm waving to strange cars. And they look at me asking, who does that guy think he is? And what is that little device that he's talking to himself in? Another way of saying, is he crazy? Perhaps so. Jeremy, it's been good to know you. All of you, thanks for making it to the end of this video. I'm surprised that you did. In the comments, let me know what video game has been most addictive for you in your lifetime, if that's a relevant question. Meanwhile, like and subscribe if you want more of this. I'll see you next time for another video. Remembrances of Dr. Andy's students on Diary of a Quizmaster. Meanwhile, check out one of these videos that the YouTube algorithm thinks will be of interest to you. Bye-bye.